We'd like to welcome you back from your sessions and hope that you're getting settled in and will enjoy this lunch today. As you saw, introducing this video was Brent Lowe. He's the president of Media One. And we'd just like to thank Brent. Brent, where are you? Brent, can you stand up just one second? So we'd just like to recognize Brent Lowe from Media One for the last 8 years. Has been our partners with this program for the last 8 years. I've been involved for the last 5, and we're just very grateful. We're grateful also to the Grand American, Carrie Ann Layton, and the staff of the Grand, who always go out of their way to make sure this event is a great success. So we'd also like to acknowledge Leslie Hinsey, and the governor's, who sits on the governor's committee for the employment of people with disabilities. As you saw through these breakout sessions, and as we introduced this morning, that was one of the themes, how we can engage with the disabled community in a much greater way in terms of employment and whatnot. And then along with Media One and GoEd, I need to have a special acknowledgement of our GoEd team and our Media One team. I mentioned Brent, but in particular, Jed Call from Media One and his team, and Michael Sullivan, who has really, what I would consider, mastered this program of putting this event on. And if you could just join me in thanking all the volunteers and the people that put this together. The people who have been speaking and the lineup, we start working on this tomorrow. The day after the summit, we start working on it. And in Clayton Christensen's case, 2.5 years in the making. If you can also join me in thanking a number of our sponsors. I'll walk through these, and then if you will, we'll acknowledge them at the end. But our presenting sponsor and our Zions Bank and our champion who's really supported this for the past 8 years, Mr. Scott Anderson. Our major sponsors include, and you can look to the screen here, Questar, CBRE, Intermountain Healthcare, Deseret Management Corporation, and American Express. And then we'd also like to thank, and you'll find their names both in the programs as well as on the screen, our event sponsors and our corporate sponsors. And again, just take a look in the program, recognize them for what they do, and we'd just like to thank them for their contribution. So join me in giving them a round of applause. At your table today, you'll find this new our Business in Utah magazine. We produce this each year. We've got the handsome picture of our great 17th governor, Gary HERBERT, on the cover. But what's interesting about this, and we won't have a competition because you might not be able to recognize, but he's standing in front of the newest autoclave in the state that is down at the Boeing plant here out in West Jordan. And we'd just like to thank Boeing for their efforts in opening up their plant so that we could take these photos. And it really epitomizes what we're doing in Utah. This morning, Dr. Christensen spoke about innovation and growing and driving with that innovation. And attracting companies like Boeing and the companies that you work at is critical to our success going forward. So I'd like to thank Larry for these photos and Business in Utah magazine for helping us produce this. But also, once you get the photographs, once you get the articles written, it's critical to engage with a good printing company that can help move this through very quickly. And Hudson Printing, we'd just like to thank them as well. They have new digital printing capacity, which enables us to print these kinds of things within 48 hours. So thank you very much to the team for Utah Business and Media One and Hudson Printing for this. A round of applause would be appropriate here. Thank you. Now, for those of you who are here this morning, you'll get a repeat, but I'd like to acknowledge Governor Gary R. Herbert on my left, who's on the dais, and Mr. Scott Anderson, who you'll hear from here in a moment, of Zions Bank. We've got Dr. Clayton Christensen of Harvard and our keynote speaker this morning. Derek Miller, my good friend and colleague, who's really enabled us in the Governor's Office of Economic Development to be successful in communicating the needs that we have up to the governor. And just like to recognize Derek Miller, Governor's Chief of Staff. Formerly Bishop Keith McMullen, And I think he got a couple of weeks off between that and being asked to run Deseret Management Corporation, and you've seen the great results of what he's done over the last couple of years now. And Tab Cornelison from CBRE, who is also a major sponsor of this event. And then we also have one of my most favorite people, who's also known as my Chief Operating Officer. And I'm going to actually be losing her, unfortunately, because she's running for office in District 31 for the House of Representatives. And so I'd just like to thank Sophia DeCaro for all the hard work that she's done. And please join me in a round of applause. I'd like to say that we try to prevent her from getting elected, but that probably wouldn't be in her best interest. And it would be in the best interest of me, though, to retain her in our office. But she has got 13 years of experience, both in being a budget analyst, engaged with policy, engaged with operations, and that she'll be a great addition. And we're just grateful for her. Thank you, Sophia. So, and on my right now, we mentioned Lieutenant Governor Spencer Cox has a great first name. And not only does he have a great first name, but he comes from a great place, Fairview, Utah, which is where my mom was from. And we're just grateful for your inaugural Governor's Economic Summit and many more to come. And then we've got Mr. Dick Marriott, and we're grateful for what he said this morning. We had rave reviews on his presentation. He's the, and we're grateful for you. Ginger Wersbanowski from Northrop Grumman, also one of our major presenters this morning. Bert Zimmerly from Intermountain Healthcare, a major sponsor. Tom Jefferson from Questar. And Leslie Hinsey, who's the Executive Director of the Governor's Committee on Employment of People with Disabilities and partner in producing this event today, as you've seen in some of the breakout sessions. And then we've got Brent Lowe and Jeff Edwards, and we're grateful for both of those. Jeff Edwards, I have to just mention, as the CEO of Economic Development Corporation of Utah. When you think about the successes that we've been having in retaining, recruiting, and helping companies expand in this state, that does not occur by itself, and you have to have good partners, and it's a hand-in-glove relationship with Jeff, and so thank you, Jeff, and EDC Utah. So far too many to recognize, but we would just like to acknowledge that we have legislators who are our partners and enable us as a state to be successful in the audience, and mayors and civic leaders from across the state, and many presenters who have spent their time preparing for this day and sharing their insights, and there's more to come. Now, if I can just get your attention quickly, we've been watching this bust that's being produced by Daniel Fairbanks, and he's working right now up over here to my right. And if we can just throw him up on the screen real quick so that everybody can see the work that he's completed thus far of the bust of Clayton Christensen, that'd be great. This is the work that's been done so far. Thank you. Daniel is the Dean of Science and Health at the Utah Valley University and is an accomplished scientist, artist, author, and teacher. And he's part of the famous Fairbanks artistic family. This idea to do this was brought forward, and I thought, what a great thing to honor such a great man, both in Daniel and his artistic ability, but in particular, the man who spoke to us this morning, our keynote address, Dr. Clayton Christensen, and the thoughts that he put forward and the leadership that he's provided. And you all received a book, The Innovator's Dilemma, and I hope that you plan to read that, but we just are very grateful for that. I'd like to recognize his brother Carlton Christensen, who's a former Salt Lake City councilman and also now working in economic development with Salt Lake County. And I'd like to also recognize Clayton's wife, Christine, and his family that are here. And just know how much we love and appreciate you and all the hard work that you've done. and the great joy you bring, and how proud we are of you as being a Utah son. Now, I mentioned Daniel. He's got a son also, and we've heard a lot about autism in the state. His son, Michael Fairbanks, is severely autistic, has driven his family to be devoted to genetic research in autism at the University of Utah and George Washington University, as well as promoting autism awareness through the Autism Initiative at Utah Valley University. And the governor's going to speak about this a little bit later, but we're just grateful for you, Daniel, and all you've done. So now, it's my honor to present to you, Clayton, and if you'd come up here and join me for a minute. And while he's coming up here, I would just note that if you want to know what Clayton said this morning, you'll find this. Clayton M. Christensen, the New Church of Finance, deeply held beliefs and complex codes must be changed. This is a Deseret News op-ed that Clayton wrote. You can find it on your way out if you weren't able to take notes. Clayton, we're just so honored that you're here, and the governor is so pleased that you're here. And we want to present to you this bust, and you can't take it with you today because it's still wet, but we're going to fire that, and we will deliver it to you. And just thank you very much for all that you do. Appreciate it.
It's just overwhelming, so thank you. I thought I might just tell a story which brings with it some hopes for that beautiful peace. A number of years ago in my course at HBS, I said a couple of things, or did a couple of things in class, which my mother taught me to do, which created trouble. So I opened a door for a woman in the class for her to go through first. And she stepped back and said, "No, men and women are equal." So fine. But my mother taught me that I should always open doors for women. And then that same student came to see me later and said, "You don't treat men and women equally in class, because in the case method, you need to push back when a student says something that needs to be explored more deeply." And he said, "You don't push back on women to the same degree you push back on the men." And I was doing my best to treat everybody the same, and so I had colleagues from the faculty come in and observe and try to show what I was not doing right. And I was trying so hard to deal with everybody fairly that I just got tied up in knots, and teaching wasn't fun. I tried so hard. Anyway, that was the context. And I came out here to see my mother, who was ill. And then as I was flying back through Minneapolis, it turned out that I was sitting in the plane next to a man who was quite elderly and was a chieftain in the Lakota tribe. And he explained that he was going back to through Minneapolis, and then he was going to rent a car and go over into South Dakota and just say thanks to an elderly woman who was passing away. And so he then asked me, what do you do professionally? And I explained that I was a professor at Harvard Business School. And he said, "How's it going?" And I was just in the middle of all of this tenseness inside of me. And so I explained what was going on. And he said, "Can I give you a piece of advice?" And he said, "You need to teach with love." And it was the first time ever the words teach by the case method at Harvard and teaching with love were in the same context. But we talked about that just a little bit. Anyway, the next morning when I had to teach, I decided that I would kneel down in my office and pray that the Lord would bless me to know how I could teach with love. And as I tried to do that every day, pray that I could teach with love, it was just amazing how the context in that class changed. And it was one of the most productive group of people that I've ever been able to teach. And ever since that time, whenever I give a talk or teach a class, I always remember to kneel and ask God to bless me so that everybody in the class can feel my love for them and that they would be able to feel God's love for them emanating through me. And it's been a real blessing to try to do that in my life. And now you're doing this wonderful thing to make that bust. And I just hope that everybody who sees it won't just think that this is a guy from the Harvard Business School, but I hope that they will be able to feel my love and God's love. So anyway, thank you so much.
Hard to add anything to that. But let me just say a few things about in preparation for the governor's comments. I mentioned this morning as we set out on a path after Governor Herbert asked us to start out 5 years ago. You know, what's our vision? What's our goal? And we talked about being the #1 economy in the state, and we talked in the country, and we talked about being a premier global business destination. I use it everywhere I go. The card, the green card, my team all carry it. And if you don't have one, I'll be sure to get it to you. But it's a clear vision. It's not a surprise, and it's not a mistake that Utah's doing well. There's a plan, and there's an effort. And it's not one that's just occurred over the short period that we've been here. It's one that's occurred over time. But I will tell you that over the last 5 years, we have been executing on the plan. And, you know, whether it's Utah Life Elevated or developing a global branding strategy where we can all collaborate, the governor talked about unprecedented partnerships. When we were in 2009, 2010, the governor said these are unprecedented times. They demand unprecedented partnerships. We have taken that to heart. And we would just like to thank each one of you for the efforts that you've put forward as being collaborative in terms of trying to make that unprecedented partnership a reality. The governor set out a goal to accelerate, and I emphasize accelerate, the creation of 100,000 jobs in 1,000 days. That was at the time of the presidential election when the presidential candidates were saying, we create jobs. We recognize in Utah, we do not create jobs. It's the private sector. It's each one of you that does that. But we do have a role to play in government. You created the jobs. But I will tell you that over the course of the last 5 years, we've worked to help create on the margins 32,000 jobs. Let me give you an idea what 32,000 jobs equates to on a projected. Something coming down the pipeline that we should expect because we believe the companies will be able to succeed here. That's $24 billion in projected wages coming down the pike. $5.3 billion in CapEx, much of that has probably been spent already. And 2.1 billion in projected new state revenue coming from the work that we've been able to participate in working with EDC Utah and other partners. 79 companies. These are future jobs. We mentioned that 2.5 million people will be added to our economy. That's 1.9 million jobs. What will they be to the future? We're going to hear that from the governor. Now, I've said thank you, and I will say a deep thank you once again. We cannot do our job in the Governor's Office of Economic Development without your help. And I'd like to thank the governor for his great leadership and also for the I think I caught the bug that Clayton had. We take our job seriously. And the governor has given us an opportunity to serve. And I'd just like to thank him for that opportunity. We have a team in our office in Goa, and I want to thank them because as I always tell them, there's never a convenient time to give public service. And so, Governor, thank you. Thank you for your leadership. Now, Utahns expect accountability. We've set that on the vision statement. We're going to hear more about that. Let me introduce Scott Anderson. He's the leader in the state. He puts himself forward. 8 straight years from Zions Bank sponsoring this event. We'd like to thank them. And now I'm going to introduce Scott. He's the president and CEO of Zions First National Bank, and he will introduce the governor, the 17th governor of the state. Scott, please come up.
Well, as we have heard today, Governor Herbert's vision and economic development plan for Utah is to lead the nation as the best performing economy and to be recognized as the premier global business destination. Jobs, education, sustainable energy sources, healthy environment, clean air, innovation, all of these are key elements to the governor's plan for Utah. And the miracle is that the governor is delivering on his ambitious plan. Utah is a fiscally responsible state with a balanced budget and a rainy day fund. We routinely invest in infrastructure to keep our state moving. Utah is a business-friendly state in terms of taxation and regulations. Utah is a diverse economy. We are globally engaged. We prioritize education, and we have a young and well-educated workforce. So from every measure, Utah has done well under Governor Herbert's management. Congratulations, Governor, to you for the state of success that we have here, and congratulations to all of you who have worked so hard to bring this success to a reality. And this success is recognized on a national basis. The governor was recently back in Washington, D.C. at the White House for an event where the vice president came up to him and said, "Governor, tell me the secret out in Utah. What are you doing and how can we do it here in the nation's capital?" And I think that's a great tribute to the governor and to all of you for what's happening out here. But the government's plan and management strategy, I believe, has been so successful because he knows that the road to economic prosperity is not just establishing more regulations to reduce economic risk. And he knows it's not abandoning our capitalistic roots to ensure future economic stability. Rather, the government's plan is based on the power of collaboration, where people, businesses, institutions, and government come together in bringing and contributing their own unique perspective to the table of economic development, human advancement, and community well-being. He sees the power in partnerships that meld resources and money and technology and ideas into a system that delivers more to our economy and more to our communities than ever before. He uses state capitalism, or investments by the state, to fund education, to train our workforce, to build roads, to create innovative technologies, and to help grow businesses, new industries, and ever higher paying jobs in Utah. These organizing principles have led to our economic revival, an expansion of our tax base, and provided more funding for education. And these principles have delivered to us, the people of Utah, prosperity. As a state and as a people, we have all benefited from Governor Herbert's vision and leadership and expert management. He is a governor of the people and for the people. He knows our state. He knows business. He knows the value of education. He feels the pain of taxes and regulations. He is simply one of us. The Washington Post recently declared that Governor Herbert is the nation's most popular governor. And Steve Forbes has called the governor the greatest governor in the state, in the nation, because he leads the strongest state economy. But this is only what we expect from Governor Herbert. He has good genes, he has a beautiful and brilliant wife, and his history runs long and deep in our state and our country, back to the very beginning of our state and back to the birth of our nation, back to Butch Cassidy and to Benjamin Franklin. Do you know that Governor Herbert is related to both Butch Cassidy and Benjamin Franklin? He is. And if you look carefully, the family resemblance is pretty strong. And let me show you that. And now with Butch Cassidy. But beyond the family resemblance, Governor Herbert shares many of the same traits as these illustrious ancestors. Benjamin Franklin's ingenuity is well documented, as is Governor Herbert's. For example, when he was a young man, he went on a road trip with a good friend, Tom Whitaker, to California. And as they were traveling through the deserts of Nevada, the car developed a pretty severe transmission leak. There were no service stations in sight. But the governor came up with a solution to fix the leak. He chewed a lot of bubble gum and used that big wad of gum to plug the leak. And that bubble gum patch lasted and kept the car going all the way to California and all the way back to Utah. And that same ingenuity continues to be shown today in the many incredible economic programs and initiatives that the governor has enacted over his years in office. And those efforts have led Utah to being recognized as the best state for business and careers by the Forbes magazine, and the most innovative state by CNN Money. So if the governor got his ingenuity and his DNA from Benjamin Franklin, what did he get from Butch Cassidy? As we all know, Butch Cassidy was a no-nonsense, do whatever it takes to win type of guy. He was not intimidated by others, even if they were bigger. He just outfought them and outsmarted them. And let me show you what I mean by this clip.
Just forget about Logan taking over, okay, Flatnose?
Well, you always said that any one of us could challenge you, Butch.
Well, that's because I figured no one would do it.
Figured wrong, Butch.
You guys can't want Logan.
Well, at least he's with us, Butch. You've been spending a lot of time gone.
Well, that's because everything's different now.
Guns or knives,
It's
Butch?
harder now. You gotta plan more. You gotta prepare more.
Guns or knives?
Neither.
Pick.
I don't want to shoot with you, Harvey.
Anything you say, Butch.
Maybe there's a way to make a profit in this. Bet on Logan.
I would, but who'd bet on you?
Sundance. When we're done, he's dead. You're welcome to stay.
Listen, I don't mean to be a sore loser, but when it's done, if I'm dead, kill him.
Love to.
No, not yet. Not until me and Harvey get the rules straightened out.
Rules? In a knife fight? No rules. What?
Well, if there ain't gonna be any rules, let's get the fight started. Someone count 1, 2, 3, go.
1, 2, 3, go.
I was really rooting for you, Butch.
Well, thank you, Flatnose. That's what sustained me in my time of trouble. Hey, what's this about the flyer?
Well, Harvey said we'd hit it both this run and the return. He said nobody's done.
Well, just like Butch Cassidy, Governor Herbert is truly a no-nonsense, down-to-earth man of action. He takes action on real solutions to Utah's challenges. His economic and business vision for Utah is built on actionable objectives, his four cornerstones of education, jobs, energy, and self-determination. He finds unique Utah solutions for Utah problems. Now, while we haven't been able to clone Governor Herbert yet, we have been able to create a limited edition official Governor Herbert action figure that you can take back to your office with you. Now, the good thing about this action figure is that you can ask it questions, and it will help you make the right business decisions. For example, should we invest more in education? Yes. Should we take that long-planned trip to Crimea? No. So this has a lot of value, and as you leave today, there's one for each of you at the table outside the desk. So we hope that you'll enjoy it. And now it's my sincere pleasure to introduce to you the real Governor Gary Herbert, the great governor of the great state of Utah, and the most popular governor in the nation, Gary Herbert.
Dr. Christensen, eat your heart out. Well, I'm touched by that, Scott. Thank you for your kind introduction. And I appreciate your service and all you do for this great state and for your friendship. I know that we've seen a video here a couple of times that's been produced here that shows that, Scott, you're missing your Ferrari. So guess what, Scott? I found your Ferrari, and so we're going to present you with a Ferrari today. Where's the Ferrari? Where's the Ferrari? Oh, it's right here. So come on up, Scott. Here's your Ferrari. Full action radio control, and that along with the bobblehead, you know, you're in great shape. So thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Governor.
Thank you. Scott has his Ferrari. Let me just say in the beginning here that, and echo kind of what Spencer Eccles has said already, we thank all of you. We've had great presenters. I mean, it's remarkable when you look at your program and you look at who's made presentations to us today. It's a who's who of people in business who really understand and get what's taking place and the challenges we face as a country. And the solutions of those challenges are found in many of the presentations made here today. And so we thank everybody who's been a part of this effort. It's good to see new friends and as well as old friends. This Economic Development Summit has grown remarkably. over 1,200 people that have signed up for this. And again, we appreciate not only those who've worked so hard to put it together, but those of you who participate, that come here and are a big part of it. So thank you for all that you do and for what you're doing and will continue to do. And I'm going to try to add a few comments here that might be of interest to you and maybe help set the tone for the next 12 months as we go forward as a state here and try to have economic success. In mulling over the theme of this year's Economic Summit, which is called Executing Fundamentals for a Better Bottom Line, I was reminded of former football coach and legend, Coach John McKay. John McKay, as you know, coached at USC and left for the NFL's expansion team then, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the results of that were actually very dismal. In fact, the Bucs lost the first 26 games that they played. But as many games as they lost, Coach McKay never lost his sense of humor. One day after another loss, a reporter asked the coach, "What do you think about your team's execution today?" Coach McKay shot back, "I'm in favor of it." Fortunately, Utah today is executing at a much higher level than those hapless Bucs of yesteryear. We're getting accolades from every corner, from some places we'd least expect. Scott highlighted, in fact, the conversation I had in the White House here just a few weeks ago with the president and the vice president. Some of you have heard me tell the story, and I apologize, but let me tell you the rest of the story. You can picture us in the Oval Office there with the president, the vice president. We had a great opportunity to spend about an hour and 25 minutes in conversation, after which, as we were getting ready to take a picture, the vice president came up to me and said, "Gary, I really like you." Well, that was a little bit of a taken back by me. That's not normally how you greet people, but I've met with the vice president on a few occasions. He's a very happy guy. Nobody's been happier to be the vice president of the United States in the history of the Republic than Joe Biden. "But I really like you, Gary." His smile, and I said, "Well, thank you, Mr. Vice President. I like you too." And then he said to me, he says, "Gary, I like you. I like what you're doing in Utah. Utah is having such good positive results. You're a great example to this country." Now, I've thought a lot about that, the fact that the vice president has said that, somebody that I would probably not agree with on many things politically, have a different ideology and perspective on what should happen with government, but the fact that he recognized it was impressive to me, the successes that we're having here in the state of Utah. It's not just that the vice president's saying nice things about Utah. Frankly, I hear the same thing from other governors. We had a bunch in this past weekend. I hear it from other federal officials. I hear it from business leaders from throughout the country, throughout the world. In fact, a number of CEOs tell me that of all the requested transfer locations in their worldwide organizations, the number one most requested location is right here in good old Utah. So what is it that the vice president and many others see that make them take notice about Utah? Of course, it's a lot of things, but mostly it's Utah's economic success. Our economy is strong, and it's growing stronger thanks to the work you're doing. We have the second fastest growing state and economy in the nation. Our unemployment rate has dropped from a high of 8.4% when I took office to today it's 3.9%. Since January of 2012, when I challenged this group here to create 100,000 jobs in 1,000 days, nearly 90,000 jobs have been created to date. So we're on track to meet that goal. And we are just as diverse now as we are dynamic. Today, Utah has the fourth most diverse economy in the nation. Think about it. That's remarkable. This means we don't have all of our economic eggs in one basket. We're not subject to the volatility of a single economic sector, and we're building on a sure foundation for long-term economic growth. So what is the great secret of Utah's success? People ask it all the time. You see the success of North Dakota, and you say, well, I know that's because of energy. But what is the great secret of Utah's success? I'm here to tell you it's not very complicated. In fact, it's really quite simple. We believe in the fundamentals and know how to execute them to grow our economy. We know times and circumstances change, but the fundamentals for success remain constant. So let's talk about the fundamentals. One of our fundamentals is low, competitive, and consistent tax rates. Utah collects the 44th lowest amount of revenue per capita in the nation. And of the 45 states that have corporate taxes, Utah is tied for the third lowest at 5%. We haven't raised corporate taxes in Utah since 1985, and I can tell you and assure you that I have no plans to do so now. Another fundamental is efficiency in government. As you've heard me say on many times, we strive to keep government off of your backs and out of your wallets. Now, I'm not anti-government. I think government has a role to play, but I believe government's role should be limited in providing the services that we, the people, think are important, and that the delivery of those services should be as efficient as possible. The biggest complaint I hear from the private sector, even more so than taxes, is about unnecessary regulations. Some regulations are necessary to protect the public or to ensure that everyone has equal opportunity. I understand that. But too many regulations are simply a drag on the economy. They're like weeds in a ditch bank. They impede the flow of commerce. That's why we not only have eliminated or modified onerous regulations at the state level, but we also are asking cities across Utah to do the same thing. And the results are quite gratifying. In the interest of time, let me just mention a couple out of many examples that we could cite here today. South Jordan. South Jordan streamlined its review process that businesses follow to occupy a new building. It also implemented a website that developers can use to track the status of their permits online. This has cut the time it takes to issue permits by up to 2 weeks. As we all know, time is money. Also, Brigham City lowered the fees it charges the businesses for service and accelerated the approval process for zoning and subdivision changes. Now, we know that there is much more to efficiency in government than just weeding out bad regulations. We also have a policy of living within our means. That's a novel idea, isn't it? We don't spend more than we take in. In fact, we save money for a rainy day, and we don't take on unnecessary debt. That's why we, Utah, is one of only a handful of states in America today that maintains a AAA bond rating. Another critically important fundamental of our economic strength is having a skilled labor force. A high school diploma alone will not suffice in today's highly competitive job market. So we've set a statewide goal for 66% of adult Utahns to have a degree or a post-secondary certificate by the year 2020. We're also working to ensure that the skills our students learn align with your needs in the business community. We are determined to ensure that our students are prepared to help drive Utah's economy forward. But in our efforts to develop our future workforce, we're not without challenges, most notably the funding of our schools. Utah is a fast-growing state, the second fastest in America today, and it costs us about $70 million each year just to pay for the new students that come into our system. Further exacerbating that challenge is that nearly 70% of our Utah's land, that land mass is controlled by the federal government, generating no property taxes to help us pay for that student growth. Even so, with these challenges, there are some positive developments to report. We have provided new money for education for 3 consecutive years now. $170 million in additional new money 2 years ago, $280 million this last year, and this past budget cycle, over $390 million of new money into education. This new money includes a $20 million investment in science, technology, engineering, and math, our STEM education programs. These are instructions to educate students for the jobs of the future and to prepare them to compete as what is now a global marketplace. Few personify STEM education's importance more than Maple Mountain High School junior Robert Ney. 3 years ago, Robert used his science and computer skills to develop the iPhone app called Bubble Ball, a physics puzzle game that has been downloaded today more than 16 million times. He is now selling upgraded versions of Bubble Ball, and he has created apps to promote Thanksgiving Point's Museum of Natural Curiosity and to help kindergarten students with their spelling. Robert's success effectively silences those detractors who would question the merits of STEM education. Robert Ney is here with us today. Robert, stand up and be acknowledged by the crowd. This is our future right here. This is our young people. Thank you, Robert. Robert exemplifies the value of STEM in inspiring this and future generations to work harder and to dream bigger. We're also making strides in improving graduation rates. Utah high school graduation rates are now at 80%, which is up 3% from last year. And our students are picking up the pace in post-secondary education also. Last year, more than 29,000 high school students in Utah earned college credit through concurrent enrollment, thus saving a combined $60 million in college tuition and getting on the fast track to earning a post-secondary degree or certificate. In addition to that, more than 1,500 online courses are offered through the Utah system of higher education. Students now have access to over 53 online degrees, including 13 master's degrees. But still, there's much more that remains to be done. Developing our workforce means not neglecting the 23,000 Utahns that we have living amongst us that have disabilities. Research shows workers with disabilities often perform better than their non-disabled counterparts. And we should be especially mindful of our disabled veterans. They have given us so much, and they have so much left to give, if we will only give them a chance and give them the opportunity. I appreciate we just celebrated autism, Worldwide Autism Recognition Day for the seventh year. And we wore blue and shine blue upon the subject. Again, an area where we're making great strides in Utah, and we need to because our autism rates are higher in Utah than the national average. A second major challenge we face is competition. It may be lonely at the top, as they say, but those at the summit soon have lots of company from those who want to knock them off their perch. And Utah, being number one, is no different. People are looking at us as the gold standard, and they want to be our replacement. Sure, every state and country can learn from other successes and our failures and explore mutually beneficial ways to grow their respective economies. But let's not forget that the competition is out there, and that it's formidable, and it's growing. So we need to continue to look for ways to meet the competition, not just to compete, but to be able to compete and to win. We will do that in three different ways. First, we will work with Utah businesses and local entrepreneurs to help them to succeed. We want to help local businesses grow and to become the next Fortune 500 company. One way to achieve this is to increase Utah's international exports. 95% of the world's customers live outside the borders of the United States, and we here in Utah are ready to do business with all of them. So I have set the goal to increase our value-added exports to $9 billion by the end of 2015. Reaching this goal will ensure continued economic expansion for many Utah businesses. Secondly, we want to attract more business or venture capital to Utah. Qualtrics, a Provo-based research software company, illustrates why such investment is so important. This company, founded in 2002 by Scott Smith, his son Ryan, and Stuart Orgel, in the basement of Scott's Provo home, Qualtrics soon began producing web-based software to collect and analyze survey data for businesses and for colleges. In 2012, two of the world's leading venture capital firms, Sequoia Capital and Excel Partners, were so impressed with this company that they invested $70 million in Qualtrics, enabling this Utah company to expand its market and add an additional 250 employees. Qualtrics now has over 5,000 clients worldwide, including over 50% of the Fortune 100 companies. It also does business with 1,300 universities, including 95 of 100 of the top 100 business schools in America. I hope they're doing it with Harvard. It's little wonder Forbes magazine now calls Qualtrics, quote, tech's hidden gem in Utah, unquote. A third way we expand our business community is through aggressive recruitment. Our message to businesses in other states and countries is clear. If you are looking to expand and become more profitable, there is no better place to do that than here in Utah. Our taxes are low, our entrepreneurial spirit is high, and we have a pro-business and regulatory climate that is second to none. We are also developing the workforce of tomorrow today, right here. Our workers are young, they are productive, they are tech-savvy, and they are bilingual. Utahns speak 130 different languages each day in commerce. It's a message that has resonated in our business recruitment trips across the United States and in our trade missions abroad. I anticipate that that message will find a receptive audience in our upcoming trade missions to Mexico next week and to Brazil later this year. Through aggressive recruitment, people the world over learn about Utah's Silicon Slopes, our booming high-tech industry along the Wasatch Front that specializes in everything from medical devices and life sciences to computer technology and software development. Transportation also poses a major challenge for us here in this state. As fast as Utah is growing, the number of drivers is growing even faster. Between 1990 and 2013, Utah's population increased by 68%. At the same time, travel on our roads increased by 83%. A well-functioning transportation system is critical to business success. And that's why all the transportation agencies in the state came together recently to create Utah's Unified Transportation Plan. This collaborative plan, and by the way, it's the only one of its kind in the nation, addresses all of our transportation needs over the next 26 years to accommodate the demands of businesses, entrepreneurs, and the people who call Utah home. Moreover, the Utah Department of Transportation is maximizing traffic movement and applying tax dollars to the areas of greatest need through innovative design and new technology. This effort extends the length of our time our current system can manage traffic effectively. Mass transit is another area where we have made significant investments. We just completed adding 70 miles of rail in 5 years. I would remind you that's 2 years ahead of schedule and $300 million under budget. That's the Utah way. Today, 70% of Utahns live within 3 miles of public transportation, and we're working to increase that to 90% by 2040. I remain committed to strengthening Utah's transportation system without weakening our business community. We also have challenges improving our air quality, a topic that's on everybody's mind here recently. Air quality is not only a health issue, but it is an economic development issue. Dirty air cuts worker productivity and raises healthcare costs, imposing an additional cost on you, the business people. It also hurts Utah's image. It discourages visitors and reduces tourism revenue. Makes Vicki Varela very unhappy as we're trying to have life elevated here in Utah. To combat this problem, we adopted a plan that requires major industrial businesses to install new technology to eliminate over 4,600 tons of pollution a year. In addition, it imposes a cap on industrial emissions in areas where we are not in compliance with federal standards. We know these requirements can inhibit businesses' ability to move or expand in some parts of Utah. So it is critically important to clean our air, not just to meet federal standards, but to protect public health and to create enough headroom to allow for additional and more economic growth in our state. By the way, we are making some significant progress. I'm pleased with the results. We recently implemented a plan that will eliminate an additional 100 tons of air pollutants a day. In addition to that, by executive order, I prohibited idling by state vehicles. We are also replacing our state fleet with alternative fuel vehicles, setting aside funds to improve energy efficiency in our state buildings, and paying for critical research to identify the best strategies to improve air quality. I also created the Clean Air Action Team, which I think has great promise, composed of experts from across the state from different points of view to gather and to evaluate ideas from the public and to recommend viable strategies to improve our air. I've already endorsed 2 of their recommendations. 1, accelerating the arrival of cleaner Tier 3 vehicles and fuel here to Utah, and 2, limiting the use of wood burning during our entire inversion season. If clean air is our economy's breath of life, then water is its lifeblood. The only limiting factor we have, in fact, to growth in Utah is, in fact, water. Last year, I called for a more aggressive state conservation target, a 25% reduction in per capita water use by 2025. As part of the Your Utah, Your Future initiative, I also created the State Water Strategy Advisory Team. This diverse group of Utah experts is working with the public to develop our water resources, to ensure water laws serve our needs, and to resolve conflicts among competing water users. Without enough water, we cannot bring in new businesses, our communities cannot support growth, and our agricultural industry, in fact, will wither on the vine. Rest assured, we will do what must be done to ensure that Utah has an ample supply of water in order to support our fast-growing population and our economy. In addressing these and other challenges, I'm reminded of the story about a man who got lost in the burning desert. After wandering around and becoming extremely hot and thirsty, the man saw a little shack in the distance. Inside the shack, he found a water pump with a small jug of water and a note that read, quote, "Pour all the water into the top of the pump to prime it," unquote. "If you do this, you will get all the water you need. After you have finished, please refill the jug for the next traveler." Well, the man had a choice to make. If he primed the pump and it didn't work, he might die. But if he drank the water in the jug, it probably would not be enough and he still might die. So after thinking it over, the man poured the jug of water into the pump and began working the handle. And sure enough, the water came. So much of it that he drank all that he wanted, refilled the jug, and continued on his way. That's a story I think many of you have heard before, but like the man in our story, we here in Utah have an important decision to make. Are we content with what we have accomplished thus far in Utah? Or do we prime the pump to ensure an even healthier business community and economic growth and expansion for future generations? To me, the answer is clear. Now is the time to plan and to act to secure Utah's long-term economic success. We must continue to prime the pump. Like you, I know that addressing our challenges won't be easy. There are even some who might say it can't be done. But I'm here to tell you that's nothing new. During the height, during the height of the Great Recession 5 years ago, when we set a goal, you've heard Spencer talk about, for Utah to lead the nation as the best performing economy and to be recognized as a premier global business destination, some thought and said to me and probably to you, I think we're being just a little bit too ambitious here. A few others might have just thought we were plain crazy or it was just political rhetoric. But guess what? By executing the fundamentals, those goals are being met. Today, Utah does lead the nation as the best performing economy. And we are recognized as a premier global business destination. Of course, nothing wilts faster than laurels that have been rested upon. So let's not rest upon our laurels. We can't afford to become complacent. We must run just to keep up. And that's why my commitment to our economic success has never been stronger than it is today. Yes, we have challenges. But there are also opportunities for us. Opportunities that often go unrecognized because they are dressed in overalls and they just look like a lot more hard work. For example, by reaching our educational goals and aligning education with your needs, we have the opportunity to generate high-tech jobs, equip Utahns with the skills to fill them, and to help Utah excel in the global marketplace more than ever before. By recruiting new businesses to Utah and expanding the ones that are already here, we will ensure that there are enough jobs for future generations, my kids, my grandkids, your posterity. By finding innovative and more efficient ways to meet our transportation needs, we will ensure there are no roadblocks to Utah's long-term economic success. By improving the quality of our air and the availability of our water, we will improve our public health, preserve our state's beauty, and continue to make Utah the right place to live and to do business. In order to capitalize on these opportunities, though, we all must do our part. Spencer talked about unprecedented partnerships. We need to partner together. And if we'll do that, we'll have unlimited possibilities. We see that taking place today. Again, this partnership here, creating great results. Government's role is to create a business-friendly environment and empower you, the private sector, to make the free market work. Your role is to grow your businesses, to hire more employees, to make more money, and help keep Utah's economy humming. I'll reemphasize what Spencer said earlier. Business, not government, is the backbone of Utah's economy. You are the ones who create the lion's share of jobs across the state and make Utah the envy of the nation. Our economy is strong. The fundamentals are in place, and we will continue to prosper as we adhere to the principles upon which economic success is based. I'm optimistic about our future, mainly because of you. I trust the private sector. I trust the free market. I know you'll find better ways to do things. You'll create new opportunities. You'll find niches in the marketplace that government would never think about. And with so much talent in this room and so many opportunities before us, the future of Utah is indeed bright. Working together, I know that we will succeed because that's simply what we do in the great state of Utah. So let me finish by saying thank you for all that you do for the people of Utah. Thank you for being business leaders, entrepreneurs, risk takers, wealth creators. Thank you for creating jobs and opportunity for the rising generations. Thank you for your attendance and participation here today. And may God bless you in your continued effort to grow the economy and make Utah the best place in America to do business. Thank you, and God bless you.
Well, I think we've been given a lot of great thoughts, great motivation, and I'm ready to go forward and take on the world. We have a lot of opportunity, and Governor, thank you for your leadership. Really appreciate it. We can't do it without you, and we'd also like to thank the legislature as well. And I know there's many here. We can't do it without them, and it really speaks to collaboration. And when we talk to companies, as the governor pointed out, the thing that sets us apart from the other states is the way we work together and put the common good first. So, Governor, thank you once again.